This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. East Coast fever kills hundreds of thousands of cattle in eastern and central Africa every year. The animals become infected when they get bitten by ticks carrying the parasite that causes the disease. A parasite is an organism that feeds on other organisms. Donald Knowles directs the Animal Disease Research Unit in the Agricultural Research Service, part of the United States Department of Agriculture. The service is working with the International Livestock Research Institute in Kenya to find better ways to prevent parasitic diseases in cattle. Dr. Knowles is also a professor at Washington State University. He points out that East Coast fever is not a contagious disease, so animals cannot give it to each other. You need a tick to transmit from one infected cow to the other. They won't transmit just by standing next to each other. You need a tick to move it between them. Farmers in parts of Africa use a vaccination method against East Coast fever known as infect and treat. First, they infect animals with live parasites. Then, they treat them with drugs to help them recover. That way, explains Dr. Knowles, the animal becomes immunized or vaccinated against a full case of the deadly fever. But there are problems with this method of vaccination. Uninfected ticks that bite the vaccinated animal can still get infected and spread the parasite to other animals. Dr. Knowles says once a cow is infected with this parasite, all the data indicates that the cow stays infected for life. That means that cow, even a cow that has been vaccinated, now it's protected against the disease, but it can still transmit. See, it's infected for life. And so that animal is still a source of transmission. And there are other problems with this method of vaccination. One of the things in using live vaccines is that they usually require cold storage, and that adds to the cost of it, and also adds to the difficulty of using it in places like Africa. For more than 4 years, American and Kenyan scientists have studied diseases carried by ticks. The scientists in the United States centered their work on the parasite that causes Texas cattle fever. This fever is common to the Americas. This year, the scientists began a new study in Africa. The study is aimed at developing a new vaccine for the East Coast fever parasite. Dr. Knowles says their goal is a vaccine that does not require infecting and treating animals or the need for cold storage. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report. New studies have found that a chemical commonly used to fight plant disease is harming honeybees. Experts say the chemical may be partly to blame for the widespread loss of honeybees in the United States. The insects are important to farmers. When a honeybee lands on a flowering plant, pollen sticks to its legs. When the bee lands on another flower, some of the pollen falls off and fertilizes the second plant. The act of pollination is important to the growth of many fruits, vegetables, nuts, and other crops. Yet, about 30% of honeybees in the United States and other areas have died in recent years. Dennis Van Engelsdorp is a researcher at the University of Maryland. He wants to learn why so many bees are dying. His research team examined pollen grains that honeybees carried to their hives. They found that the pollen contained high levels of 35 different pesticides, chemicals used to kill insects. They also found that bees that ate some fungicides became infected with a deadly microorganism called Nosema. Fungicides are used to protect against fungi and are widely used for agriculture purposes in the United States. Mike Leggett studies pesticides for the pest management industry group CropLife America. He says many of the pesticides found in the pollen examined by Dennis Van Engelsdorp actually protect bees from Nosema. Honeybees are important to agriculture. This makes the search for an answer to their deaths especially urgent for Mr. Van Engelsdorp's team. As he notes, 1 in every 3 bites of food we eat is somehow pollinated by honeybees. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
Agriculture Report in Special English. The pressure to feed Asia's growing population has led to dangerous levels of overfishing near Pacific coastlines. An example can be found in Sindangan, a fishing town in the southern Philippines. Wild catches are falling while prices are rising. One fisherman says the area's once healthy fish stocks are in danger because of an increase in the number of fishing boats. Across the South China Sea, fish catches near shore have dropped since the 1980s. That drop has pushed fishermen farther offshore and into bigger boats. An official with the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, says some fishing methods are destructive. Benjamin Francisco says the use of fine mesh nets or explosives catch young fish before they can ever reproduce. This hurts fish stocks. The fish warden in Sindangan says most of the local fishermen use fine mesh nets, but these nets have been banned for years because they catch very young fish. To deal with problems like this, the FAO has been supporting the idea of licensing systems. The aim is to limit the number of fishing boats on the water. Asia has the world's largest fishing fleets. They represent nearly 3 million of the world's 4 million fishing vessels, and most estimates say that the numbers are increasing. In Hong Kong, there are increased efforts to supervise fleets and to ban trawling for fish near shore. More than $200 million is being spent in an effort to increase catches by small fishing operations. But Hong Kong's measures are costly. FAO official Benjamin Francisco says a lot of governments in Asia do not have enough money or the ability to copy them. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report. Farming without big machines is hard work. Planting and fertilizing alone can take days in the hot sun. Researchers are working to develop simple machines to make life easier for farmers in the developing world. They would also like to help the farmers save money. Jelle van Loon is testing a model of a handheld planting tool designed for small-scale farmers. It is a long metal hoe with just 2 flat teeth. With each stroke, one tooth plants a seed, the other adds a little fertilizer. Jelle van Loon is not a farmer. He is an engineer at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center in Mexico. Mr. van Loon is working to develop low-cost tools for small-scale farmers around the world. He hopes the tools will save them work, time, and money. Usually, he starts with a piece of equipment built somewhere else. An example is a hand planter from Brazil. The long wooden V-shaped tool has a piece of metal on the bottom for breaking up the soil. Opening the arms of a part shaped like the letter V loads seed and fertilizer into the metal tip. This tool is faster and costs less than planting by hand. It uses less seed and fertilizer. It can also reduce by half the time required for planting and fertilizing a 2-hectare farm. The planter still costs about $200 to make. Jelle van Loon thinks the final product will cost less. However, he says more work is needed. His team is now testing their 4th version of the planter. Mr. van Loon says the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center will publish plans for the tool on the internet after the group has finished its work. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Culture Report. One of the great American success stories after World War II was the rise of industrial farming. But now, small is big.